Unemployment is expected to rise when the latest stats come out in a few days. So why, when 220,000 people are on the jobseeker benefit looking for work, supposedly, why are we directly importing 20,000 foreign workers this year alone into the country to work on farms and orchards and pick fruit? Why? It doesn't make sense. Who is putting New Zealanders first, and have we given up? Welcome to the program.
Are we paying these people to front up, or are we paying them to fly to Wellington to eat their lunch? Should you really lose your career for refusing to take part in a 90-minute lesson about Māori culture? This government doesn't actually have any idea how to get economic growth. Show us what you made of, Prime Minister.
Editor-in-Chief with Duncan, Garner.
Okay, you're with the Editor-in-Chief. Good to have you along. Welcome to the podcast. Evening, everyone. I'm Duncan, Garner. And please subscribe. First things first. Please subscribe. We really appreciate that. Unemployment is expected to rise this week to 5.3%. It'll be the highest in 10 years. Much worse for Māori, much worse for low-skilled workers and also young people, of course. So much for Christopher Luxon's great push for jobs and economic growth. Is this the best we can do? But I've done some digging around and found that we now bring in record numbers of seasonal workers from the Pacific Islands. More than 20,000 will come alone this year. 20,000 will come this year. What started out as just 5,000 15 years ago has now exploded as Kiwi employers turn their backs on Kiwis looking for work. Kiwis don't pick fruit. We don't pick fruit anymore. It's 20,750 Pacific Island workers come to New Zealand and pick fruit. We don't do it. What's gone wrong? Isn't this a disaster? It's happening in front of our very eyes. Let's go.
It's the Slam Dunk.
Yeah, so Nicola Willis and Christopher Luxon say that we are in the midst of things getting better. And this is the beginning of the economic recovery. Export-led economic growth is the term they use. Bloody excellent. Their scriptwriters have finally found something positive to say, and of course they were always going to, because Luxon set the goal of ruthlessly chasing economic growth at the start of the year. So of course he's going to find it, right? His speechwriters are hardly going to admit, just yet to arrive. So, of course, they will change the narrative to things are looking up. That's what they're saying. So, with that being the case, can someone please point out to me where I find this recovery? Where the bloody hell is it? I mean, if this is the good times getting underway, then prepare to be underwhelmed, folks. This is just my perspective, just my opinion, one man's opinion, based on the latest data that I can find and the forecast and actual events. Okay, so let's start with this week. In my world, the second of my older sister's daughters, so the second niece, she's aged 25. She's left New Zealand. She left a few hours ago for Melbourne, one way. She has a job lined up and will couch surf at one of her friends' houses over there because most of her Kiwi mates are in Australia now. And they love it. And her sister, the other niece, the older niece, left New Zealand last year, and now the young ones made the move as well, so they're gone. Nothing here for her. Smart young woman, went to university, got a degree, masters in sports science, and I think sports management as well. I didn't pay enough attention, I don't think, at the graduation. I think it was something like that. Anyway, $60,000 student loan came with it. And she can only really find low-paid retail jobs here in New Zealand. So her brighter future is in Australia. I doubt she'll come home again, maybe for a holiday, maybe to work one day, but it's not her plan. I can't see it. She's pretty disillusioned with New Zealand. I mean, you go to university, you rack up 60 grand worth of debt, and the opportunities in New Zealand are few and far between. Otago trained her, but when the big jobs came along, the only one getting the over-the-top salary and gold-plated gig was former Finance Minister at the very university that my niece trained at, which is Otago University. And Grant Robertson got the fancy job. Thanks for paying the fees. Now, as for the jobs, well, Grant got that. He's on $600K. Do I sound better? I hope not. Anyway, he got the best one via a cosy handshake deal. Now, pays for some people, doesn't it? Now, anyway, back to the niece. And here's the kicker. The moment she left New Zealand earlier today, so she left a couple of hours ago, the New Zealand government started charging interest on her $60K student loan too. So not only no job to stay here for, but suck on this, baby. Take that. Pay some interest, sucker. Don't think that you're leaving here a free woman. You know, a bit like a kick up the arse as you leave New Zealand. Here, take that. You know, of the 72,000 people who left New Zealand last year, 56% went to Australia. More than half went to Australia. Most are aged between 20 and 40. It used to be 20 and 30. Now the 40-year-olds are going, you see. They've chosen their future, and it's not here. Australia's got so many more jobs. We've talked about this before, and they're all way better paid. You know, the pay gap is now so large, I'm loath to report it for fear of the country emptying out if they hear it. So there's the New Zealand deal. Get educated between the ages of 5 and 23, get a university degree, and a pile of debt, and then leave New Zealand because it has nothing to offer except slapping interest on your pile of debt as you depart. Now, I know young Kiwis have always travelled. I get that. This is not new. But the stats show more 30 and 40-year-olds are now making the move. You know, it's not just young ones. It's now some of these more middle ages, around the 40s. In most cases, these Kiwis are in search of better and more well-paid jobs, which by and large they walk into the moment they settle in Australia. New Zealand's recovery is underwhelming, isn't it, so far? And this year feels like more of the same, to be honest. And I try to be really honest with you, because what's the point otherwise, But I honestly feel like we have been in recession now for 3 or more years. Is this the vibrant, recovering New Zealand that Willis and Luxon seem so keen to promote? Now, far from suggesting that Chris Hipkins and his ragtag bunch of delusional cross-dressers and separatists are fit for office, the best option right now is probably the one we have, right? But sadly, the numbers show that Luxon's failed to stem the outflow of Kiwis, and he's failed to create jobs as unemployment is expected to increase this week from 5.1 to 5.3%. Going the wrong way. This is the good times under Christopher Luxon. We're going to 5.3% unemployment. And that will mark our highest jobless numbers since 2016. Now, if Luxon is doing so well, then why do we have more people out of work every quarter under his leadership? And if it's so good here, then why are Kiwis still flocking to the departure gates? In many ways, and especially in Auckland, we are witnessing the changing face of New Zealand as hard-working and skilled Kiwis leave our shores. And we are filling the gap and adding many more migrants on top of that, you see. So despite the huge numbers leaving, even more people are arriving, and in Auckland especially. Comes at a huge cost as public infrastructure is squeezed, and I don't think it's just me, but the city at times feels like it's bursting at the seams on the roads, car parks, supermarkets, housing. While immigration adds to economic growth around the margins, it also comes at some cost as councils and governments have to use ratepayers and taxpayers' cash to build a society that can cope, you see. So our hospitals and schools are suddenly inadequate, and it's costing billions to expand the services. And until recently, it was immigration at any cost, and we don't really know what skills many of these immigrants bring here. It's just happened, really. There's been no public discussion or public debate about it. Hundreds of thousands of new people coming here, new faces, and we have crossed our fingers hoping they're all productive and law-abiding and good people, because we didn't really set the bar high. We just opened the gates and said, please come in, we want some growth. Please come in, bring some economic growth with you, please. Immigrants have historically been good for New Zealand. They work hard, they save hard, and their kids do well in school. For them, this is their brighter future. But with so many migrants coming here, some argue that they've taken the jobs traditionally filled by young Kiwis and students. And these young New Zealanders are now struggling to find work, hence why our youth unemployment rate's 23%. It's the highest it's ever been. 1 in 4 young New Zealanders don't work. They're not doing anything. They leave school, go on welfare. It's true we probably expect to be paid more and have weekends off to play footy and that sort of thing. Maybe we're just a bit precious. But immigrants appear to be more willing to work all hours and across jobs that Kiwis perhaps see as below them or simply refuse to do. I've spoken about these young Kiwis before, and it's very well telling them to get off their arse. But with an economy offering very few opportunities, what are they getting off their arse for if there's nothing there? What's the deal being offered? It would be pretty easy to feel like your country's devoid of opportunities right now. So maybe there's no work, maybe there is work, but they're not prepared to do it. Maybe employers prefer to hire somebody else. And here's why I say that. It's worried me for years that Kiwis no longer appear to work in orchards or on crop farms. We don't pick fruit. We chuck avocados away because we can't pick them. Increasingly, we've reached out and given the work to Pacific Island workers who come here for the chance to earn a bit more and pick and pack our fruit and veggies and our other crops. It's called the RSE scheme. It's alarming how reliant we've become on this and these workers. These Pacific Island seasonal workers, we're just reliant on them. When we have all our own Kiwis piling up on welfare now and supposedly ready for work, tens of thousands out of work Kiwis are languishing, 220,000 actually, are languishing on the jobseeker benefit. And hundreds of the same people are applying for one job, and still we bring in thousands and thousands, 20,750 this year, of immigrants to compete for work. And we also directly bring in these 20,000 Pacific Island workers every year. This is the largest number of Pacific Island workers we've had this year, 20,750. And they effectively take those traditional fruit-picking jobs that were once upon a time the jobs that we Kiwis did. So have a look at these numbers. These are the numbers of Pacific workers we bring in every year. It's simply exploded. Originally, we kept it at 5,000. That was in 2007 when it was announced. I think it was announced in Nandi at the Pacific Island Forum because I was there. And by 2014, it had risen to 9,000 workers. 10 years later, it's now more than doubled to 20,750. You see that number there. Pacific Island workers, 20,750 we bring in for up to a year to do the hard slog. They're really good workers, and the employers love them. Employers have demanded more and more workers come every year. That's why the numbers have gone up. They tell me they tried Kiwis, but a lot of Kiwis failed to show by day 3 and it wasn't working. But that's 20,000 plus jobs that we have to fill by directly importing these workers. 20,000 jobs that we should be able to fill with local people who are on the job seeking benefit. There's 220,000 of them. Do you think they could do the work? don't we want to put New Zealanders first? I mean, if we're not, then we're a bit deluded. In all reality, they may be work ready, those people on the job seeker, but we're not putting them in orchards and on the farms and things, because we've handed those jobs and the benefits of those jobs over to people who will not spend the money here but send it back to the islands. Of course, it's good for them. So we don't do the work. Our economy loses out on benefiting from the wages paid overall. And overall, it's a pretty broken picture, isn't it? Highest unemployment in a decade in New Zealand right now. And we directly import foreigners to work here because we can't, we're not reliable, or we can't be asked. We're not good enough, really. Too many Kiwis might get reliant on welfare, you see, so why go and pick the avocados? Can't be asked, you know. We need a hard discussion, don't we, about this, about, maybe time limiting welfare and forcing completely able men and women to do their bit by sending them out to work on the orchards, crop farms. Go and pick apples. Since when was that work below us? When did we become so arrogant and so hopeless? When did we get so useless? When did we get so precious? And when did we get so soft? Or is it the system that's too soft? It's the same thing, isn't it? Surely something has to change. Otherwise, another generation of workers will have no idea what it means to go to work. And when kids see that and learn to think, well, that's okay, then that locks them into a life without choices and locks them into a lifetime of poverty, which is no good for anyone. It's the soft bigotry of low expectations. It's the worst thing that you can do for a group of people. And sadly, that's our welfare system. We pay people to stay home when work is available on the farm. And by doing that, we're consigning a whole group of people to the shittiest life possible. That's shameful, I reckon. And we can and should be doing much better, in my view.
Editor-in-Chief with Duncan Garner.
There we go. There's the lecture for the day. Christchurch producer Isaac. But it's true that it does seem weird, You to think about it, 200,000. So 4 Eden Parks full of unemployed people, and we have to import people to pick fruit.
Yeah, it is interesting. It is a shame. And yeah, I mean, I think I've said it before in the podcast. I don't know what it's like. I mean, I've got a job. I'm not on the job seeker benefit, but yeah, I don't know. It does seem like it's a little bit lax in the sense of how people can be on the job seeker benefit, and I feel like I know people who have taken advantage of that fully.
I do too.
And so it's just, if it's easy to take advantage of it, of course people are going to do it. So maybe there needs to be some better policing, better management of that kind of thing.
Yeah, but if we're going to keep, the employers are demanding the Pacific Island workers now because they're more reliable. But the money then gets transferred back to the island. So, I think there's about 11 or 12 island nations that take part in this. So they get the benefits of millions of dollars of transfers that our shops and retailers and things aren't getting because we're not spending the money here. So, are we so well employed and rich enough to forego this work? I think we need to put New Zealanders. I'm not saying this is not an anti-Pacific Island thing. This is a pro-New Zealand thing. If we're not looking after our own people, then where are we at? We've got to do it. Anyway, you're right in the job, mate. You got a job. You have to pick apples.
Editor-in-Chief with Duncan Garner.
Okay, so we so often talk about the negative aspect of young people not in work. So there are 1 in 4 young people that are not doing anything. 23%, 1 in 4. It's the highest it's ever been. But there are some people, some agencies, some organisations doing God's work, great work, getting these young people who have left school for whatever reason, and they're turning their lives around. Youth Inspire is the group that is in the Hutt Valley, so they're in Taita, they're in Nainai, and they are turning around the lives of hundreds of these young people who aren't at school and who are looking to get a job, but they don't know how to go about it. So they sort of go through this program where they learn from the ground up. Amazing work. Zainab Ali is the coordinator there and runs Youth Inspire, which is well supported, which gets great outcomes, and it's a really positive story. It's hard work, but it's a really positive story, and that's what I wanted to do tonight on the podcast, was to show where your taxpayers' money goes, where some of the charity money goes. It goes into organisations like Youth Inspire to turn these kids' lives around, and they go on to get jobs. And then, of course, that's transformational in their life, isn't it? To go from welfare to a job, and everything else falls into place from there. And she joins me now. Zainab, g'day. Nice to see you, and welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Duncan.
In a nutshell, what is it you guys are trying to achieve? What is it you do?
Okay, so Youth Inspire here, we're located in the Nainai Taita area. And in a nutshell, I guess the simplest way to describe what we do is we take disengaged or our most vulnerable rangatahi in this community, and we work with them to give them real life skills and broker or support them to get into employment. Yeah.
Yeah. So they've come out of school. They've how far down the school track have they gone when you get them?
So most rangatahi that we work with will have generally level 1s, really level 2, but level 1 is kind of the most that the rangatahi we work with, and in the most of the time they have level 1 as the highest qualification.
Yeah, so that's NCEA. It's the old fifth form, I suppose, that from for oldies like me.
Yeah.
So yeah,
and a lot of the time that's not there either, and that's okay.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, well, I always question the relevancy of some of those things. Anyway, it's what they do when they get to you and what you do with them, and you seem to be able to partner up with all sorts of opportunities. How's it been going? How hard is it in today's world to get these kids into opportunities and get them to, turn up on time and have all those right attitudes and all those things, because there's so much potential sitting in front of, sitting in front of these potential employers, and you've got good partners as well. So tell me about how you go about it.
Okay, so, well, to answer your first question, I think, look, Youth Inspire started like 11 years ago. So from that time to now, things are much harder. Not as tough as it was over the COVID lockdown period, but, a lot more challenging, certainly, than we found it 11 years ago. What we're seeing is that there's been an increase in the complexity around the needs of our young people. So we're dealing with more complex mental health needs, and support that's required there. Housing and access to food is one of our key barriers. Physical health, financial barriers, and drug and alcohol use. Those are just some of the kind of barriers that we're currently having to deal with on a day-to-day basis, Duncan.
Yeah.
So it's hard out there, but we are finding that by the time rangatahi enroll into our programs, they want change. They want the support.
Yeah.
And we're here giving them real life skills. So, you'll often see the first day, everyone's really pumped up and they're really excited. And then you'll see this kind of drop off. And our job is to work with them, support them, pick them up from home if we need to, at 8 o'clock in the morning, and get them to commit to doing the mahi it's required to complete, first and foremost, a program, but also to then learn the skills required to be in employment successfully. And by the end of our program, it's just incredible. It's incredible the growth our young people, our rangatahi, go through. And Duncan, I'd say we have graduations at the end of our programs, and there's never a dry eye.
I bet, yeah.
In the room. It's incredible. So
it's interesting, isn't it? Because what you're doing, because they've come out of school and that wasn't for them, and then they get by the time they get to you guys, they're actually engaged in wanting to make a change and wanting to advance and that sort of thing, obviously. But it's amazing what you can do with them that school can't do, and it'll be the approach and the format and the realism of your program and the sort of the practical nature of it all and everything. That school it doesn't seem to connect with some of these guys, and I see this in my own life up here. And what you guys are doing is transformative in their lives, and I wonder how can you guys do it, but the education system before you, it completely can't. It's I don't want to dog school. I'm not criticising school. But it seems to me that you're getting these kids after 10 years of investment in them from, the education system, and you've got to start again.
Yeah. It's, look, again, it is eye-opening. We all know the phrase, school wasn't for some people.
Yeah.
And I think I'll talk to the key factors for us. So the key factors for us is that generally everything is tailor-made here. We have smaller class, we have a smaller size cohort that runs in any program at one time. Things need to be catered, they're individualized. There's pathway plans for our rangatahi that are individualized to what they want.
It's practical
achieve.
for them, right? It's practical. They can see themselves finishing it, and
yeah, and we're very clear on what we're trying to achieve. Now, even though we run just as long as a school hour does, I think that one-on-one approach, that tackling not just what we're trying to teach them, but what else is going on that would be a barrier to the learning is the key here.
Yeah.
How we implement that in a school system. Look, I'm not the expert on that, but I'm telling you the extra effort makes a difference.
And you say that the increased need now compared to 11 years ago is stark. It's quite different, and that's if you look at our truancy rates, and even the truancy stuff, I have it's hard to sort of nail down because there's a formula and everything. It may not be even true, but there certainly seems to be, from what I can see, a lot of our young men especially disengaged with school. And so you've probably got a lot more of them coming. You've probably got a lot more need, right? You've got a lot more people, young people coming through the front door.
100%. So something that concerns me is the increase. So to give you a bit of context, the youngest rangatahi that we can engage with at Youth Inspire is 15.
Right. Yep.
The oldest being 24. Now, the thing that sits at the back of my mind is that the number of 15, 16-year-olds we're getting in is astronomical.
Yeah.
Now, to get a 15-year-old ready with life skills for employment versus, say a 20 or 21-year-old, it's a very different conversation, very different pathway.
Yeah.
But the increase in 15-year-olds we're seeing is incredible. And not only are we seeing an increase in these 15-year-olds leaving school most of the time without, even NCEA level 1, but we're getting an increase in schools seeking support from us on how to engage the rangatahi so that their pathways are not they just haven't fallen off the cliff.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's the trend we're seeing, Duncan.
Yeah, and you see that in the stats too. 23%, I think the number is 23% of 15 to 19-year-olds, basically unemployed, I suppose is the term. Not doing anything, but starting to engage with places like yourselves. What worries me is when I've done a bit of I've interviewed and done a bit of work with Billy Graham and who's also in your community, and they did some wonderful work during COVID and getting their kids back to school and things, but then they lost funding because they were funded centrally. You guys appear to be well supported. Not that any agency like yours would ever go out there and say we've got everything we need, but it's really crucial that you're supported, because I look at some, especially the government's approach at the moment, and I think there's a lot of money being stripped from different agencies, and it worries me. Imagine if you were closed down on the spot, where those kids would go. What would be their futures? It's a lifeline.
Look, you're not wrong. We are very grateful. We're blessed with the, especially central government contracts make up the most of the income that we use to run this organisation, and it's great that that's there. Of course, if the funding wasn't there, it would be a huge issue. Where does the intervention come in? And without intervention, what are the likely outcomes for these rangatahi as they get older? So I think it's the need now is more than ever, unfortunately. I mean, hopefully, Duncan, we can talk in the future and I say, look, we're not needed anymore. We closed down because we just, there was no need for us. But up until that time, I just can't see how an organisation like ours cannot exist, if that makes sense.
Is it so hard? Do you because you have to leave there at the end of the day and come back on the next day and everything, and yours is the sort of job I think that you'd probably take home. Do you talk about it being much tougher now? Is it that gritty and tough now? There's some of the issues just so complex, and getting these young fellas ready for the real world. So you're almost doing a lot of parenting as things as well, because you can't take it as a given that these young adults have learned all that stuff, right? They come from all sorts of challenging backgrounds, so it's almost starting again, getting them to turn up on time, attitude, and so that we can't have New Zealand employers giving up on these kids. because those
No.
numbers are just too high.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Duncan. And I think, we talked about earlier, I mean, one way or another, I say this to everybody, one way or another, these rangatahi are our future. They're our future leaders, that we are literally shaping the future of this country. Not just, here in my little community, but right across, Aotearoa. These are the things we need to think about. And I'm a huge advocate of that, because one time I was a young person.
Yeah.
I came from a very similar community, and we didn't have a service or intervention the way that, at the moment we have, Youth Inspire and similar organizations. And I look back at those that I grew up with, and the outcomes, where the people I grew up with is really, really sad, So look, these are our future leaders one way or another. And there are a lot of, look, on a good news, I have to give you something positive, which is that at least in our region, we have amazing partners, amazing employers who take on our rangatahi and they support them, and they end up, there's so many stories, Duncan, of employers who are like, my best employee is the person I took a chance on 3 years ago.
My hairs on my arms stick out when I hear that, because that's success. And you hand them over to an employer, and the employer's then got their back. I worry that, and it's great that you've got these employers in your backyard and you've worked with them and you have partners, and that's great. Not all communities have that, and the further away from Wellington you get, the harder it is to actually sometimes get visibility in front of government and all that sort of thing. And so, I mean, it is like a job is life changing.
Yes.
Like it'll transform their world and their whole future.
Oh, Duncan, oh man, that's it. You've nailed it on the head, right? So for instance, I'll give you an example. We get a young person in, and their needs are complex, yes, and we work with them, and they've got housing issues, they've got access to food, childcare, all of these issues, right? That are stopping them from engaging at this point when they enroll with us. We work with them. We put in all the support services we can. Now, this young person gets a job. Now, the income that they're able to generate by having sustainable employment, it straight away starts removing those barriers. It starts increasing their access to social services, to better food, better options for their children or their brothers and sisters. And so it's just huge,
So how many people do you reckon you put into work go through this system and then get a job at the end of it?
We average at the moment, just in our little small community at the moment, about 250 per annum of people.
Wow.
So we engage with many more rangatahi at the moment. Like, for instance,
but that's huge, eh? 250. That's 250
yeah.
jobs. That's 250 kids who staring down the barrel suddenly have got security of income, have got routine. Routine's crucial. Have got to get up the time of the day, go to bed time, and responsibilities during the day. It's just 250. I thought you might have told me 40 or 50. So
no. So, we kind of work in 6-month blocks, and at the moment we're engaging with 130 young people who are working towards getting driver's license and employment and or education, getting them into further study. So it's huge, and we've existed for 11 years, and we're just over 11 years, and we've got almost 3,000 rangatahi into employment or further education.
It's pretty compelling when you say it like that, eh? It's a really compelling picture. I'm just trying to picture 3,000 people who have turned their lives, because they've turned their lives around, you see, and you've turned their lives around. With you guys, then there's hope. Without hope, then people are sort of stuffed. But where there's hope, which is what you guys offer, and the pathway, it's what I wanted to show today was that a group like yourselves, it's something positive, because we get consistently hit with negative headlines about young people, and I've been guilty of this too. and we wonder where the money goes, where you put money into young people in these courses and everything. This is you guys, this is outcomes driven. That's the best thing about, I think,
Because, you'll find that, currently you'll find that, okay, so if you we'll calculate the cost benefit, okay? So if a young person is on the benefit for a year, at minimum, say $300 a week, they're going to, over the year, I'll just make sure I've got that right.
15, 16 grand,
Yeah, 15,600. Now, we get much, much less than that to work with them for a maximum 14 weeks, okay?
Yeah.
And they get into work. The difference in investment is just like you give the money to someone who is going to dedicate, going to tailor, not just us, but any organization that's, made to get them a specific, concrete outcome. I mean, the value for money is just ridiculous, Duncan.
And that's what I've been saying for months and months, if not years now, is that we pay all this money, especially now to young people, because they leave school without a plan, so they can go on welfare. The numbers are higher than it's ever been, sadly, and that's just all sorts of reasons why. And so we pay this money and they stay home, and they might be gaming or something. But if you turn that money around and it's paid and invested in something like this, the returns will be 200-fold, and so, I would really like the government to do more of this sort of thing, to be honest, and I keep pushing them to do more. Like you guys, they should. I know you're already empowered to do what you do, but just repeat it and repeat it and repeat it. Like New Zealand's just a bunch of, but all New Zealanders is a bunch of communities like yours, and there'll be a service like yours in Blenheim. There'll be a service like yours, Whangarei, and they're repeated everywhere, right?
Yeah. I mean, and to make sure they're tailored and fit for purpose. Because here's where I think sometimes we can get it wrong, Duncan, is when we try and, do a one-size-fits-all solution.
Yeah, it never works.
And that's it. So you want to empower communities, skilled people, to kind of, at the ground level, come up with their own solutions, right? And acknowledge that every community is slightly different.
Totally.
Well,
you might work in an area where there's forestry. So Tokoroa, you'll have forest. So you might do some forestry certificates and things. You might have an area where there's lots of fishing, and so there's all sorts of opportunities that, that we haven't tapped really even.
Absolutely. And I think, what we need is us, us Kiwis, we're a nation of people who are down to earth. We will generally, if given the opportunity, engage and give back where we can.
Yeah.
And I think if we can remember that our young people are our future, engaging them will make our country and our prospects and our future and our kids' lives so much brighter.
Yeah.
I think that partnering up with making sure that we all have an attitude towards giving back and helping, I think, that's where the change needs to happen. You can throw all the funding you want at it, but as a nation, we also need to want that change, to act on that change.
To me, that's one of the most crucial things that's been said is, and I had a mentor and a first boss who was incredible. And so I was really lucky in journalism that I got that start. I'd been to university, done all that stuff, but the real world's much tougher, And so I learned through her, a brilliant boss, and I have taken it upon myself ever since those days to do the same, and I'll get kids in and they'll stay for 3 months or whatever, when I was at TV3 and almost to the point where the boss is saying, hey, who's that guy you got there? And I say, well, there's nothing official. I'm just looking after them, showing them the ropes. But, I urge people listening to this, if you can, if you're running a business, whatever, be a mentor, be a role model. Lots of these boys and whatever, they may not have a dad or they may not have someone who is a good example at home. And so you can change your life. Offering them, give them a part-time job. See, you start by sweeping the floors of the factory and you move up. We all started I powder coated curtain rails in a powder coating factory. You know.
And look at you now.
Yeah,
You know?
I know. Maybe that job might have been better, but you know what I mean. But and I remember I got $240 a week, you know, and had to make it work, and we were saving for a rugby trip and everything. So we've all started somewhere. Everyone, it's a very New Zealand story, you know.
That's it. And if all of us, anyone who listens to this podcast and goes and has the opportunity to even provide work experience, you know, get in contact with an organization like ours and go, look, I'm really happy just to provide mentorship. It's free. Work experience. It's free. You know, it costs nothing.
I'll come and talk to them about having a positive attitude. I'll come and talk to them about what it means to get up in the morning or have a routine. You know, like even those things can actually be life changing for some people that aren't used to it. If you've come from a family of intergenerational unemployment, and I see a lot of this up north. You haven't seen your dad get up every morning to go to work, and he never saw his father get up because they lost their jobs in Rogernomics in the 80s or whatever. Okay, and in those communities they died really quickly because there were no other jobs. So if you haven't seen that, you don't know. I saw my dad get up and leave home every day at 7:47, same time every day. I don't know what he did, but I saw that, and it still sticks in my mind. 51 years later, that's what he did. But some families don't see that, right?
Yeah, no, that's right, Duncan. And just this morning, I was in the course with the young people, and I was explaining to them the power of being really conscious about who you surround yourself with. Yeah. So we are a product. We are all products of what the environment, the people we surround ourselves with. So yes, if a child is grown up and seen every day that, you know, waking up at 7:45 or 6:30 in the morning is normal, and doing your homework is normal, and they grow up with it, and that's the expectations, that's the unconscious expectations that they have on themselves. Growing up and seeing the opposite, that is what's going to be the expected norm, right? So you're absolutely right, and I'm encouraging our young people, like, if you're not getting where you need to be, change the environment, change the people that you have a conversation with every day. This goes for all of us, right?
Yeah. And who are your sons and daughters' friends? Who are they hanging out with? You know, that's kind of crucial. You know, I keep an eye on that, and so that matters. And what would you say? And I'll make this the last question because you've got people to put into employment. But what would you say has been the greatest change in that last 11 years, from where you were to what you see come through the front door now? What's really changed? What's the most significant change you've seen? It doesn't have to be positive. It can be just the reality of the situation.
Well, look, the mental health of our young people has become even more complex over the last years. So that's something that's made what we do a little bit tougher, right? But on the flip side, the dedication and the people that are partnering with us to change lives has only increased in the last 11 years. Yeah. And that's what it takes. Sometimes it needs someone in the middle who can connect those who need the support and those who want to support and bring them together. Yeah. That's it, Duncan. That's what I probably would say has happened in the last 11 years.
Good luck with what you do. I'm glad we've been able to highlight what you do. Yeah, thank you so much for chatting to us.
Thank you.
Editor-in-Chief with Duncan Garner.
Yeah, they're good people out there doing good stuff, eh? They're really good people. Isaac doing good stuff, and she's one of them. What a great person. Man, I reckon you'd take that job home at night, eh? You know, because you're dealing with these, 250 jobs a year they put them into.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Cool. Yeah, it is. Okay, let us to the editor. Let's do this. Duncan, the unemployed have always been... Oh, here we go. The unemployed have always been a problem, but them cleaning up the environment and, you need to supply appropriate gear. Travel to the job, etc. Many years ago, someone proposed that the unemployed spend time similar to the employed, that they suggested that New Zealand was full of sports grounds with empty stands. Community centres every day. The unemployed reported to the local sports ground and spend 8 hours a day there. Oh, this is the idea. So you take the unemployed to a sports ground and put them in the grandstand. There's a great deal of merit to this idea. The unemployed report to a supervisor and their dole is paid according to their attendance. 2, they bring a book or whatever and basically do nothing or run around the park. 3, they can have shelter in the stands in bad weather. 4, any problems, police are notified or the police can do regular checks. 5, supervisors are paid extra to maintain a register of attendees. off the job seeker benefit. 6, supervisors chosen from off the dole. No skills required. 7, events planned every day if possible. Speakers about finance, preparation of a CV. 8, potential employers could come to the ground and interview them. 9, local school lunches not used can be dropped off. It's not a prison. They can go at any time. They just don't get paid. Reduction in police resources if they're creating crime. Walk to the local event. No drugs, no alcohol allowed. There'd be no graffiti on these buildings. No one will bring a can of paint. Does not apply to solar mums and people on sickness benefits. The basic idea would be to get them off their bums and get used to a work routine. Do a couple of pilot programs. Would appreciate what you think. That's from Paul. I don't know if you get away with doing that. I don't think people
sounds a little bit dystopian, doesn't it?
But fanciful, yeah. I mean, hey, great in theory, but in practice, people would just go not showing up.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah,
they wouldn't do it.
And yeah, it seems like it's just, you can't exactly market that in a positive way. You know, all of you guys have to come pile into the stadium all day. You know, it's a little bit.
It's like
a little bit suspect as well.
Sort of thing you might see in Kabul or something in Afghanistan. Okay, then this comes with a picture. This one. You go for you read this because it comes with a picture.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, this is the picture.
Yeah.
Anyone else find this offensive? I didn't know if I should be shocked, laugh, or be offended. It was at my local pharmacy for every grandchild to see grandma, to see a grandma giving them the finger. I'm not a snowflake. But am I being a bit too sensitive? The staff said they've had multiple complaints and feel uncomfortable putting it up initially, and took it down and ripped it just after I took the pic.
Yeah, so it's as you can see from the picture here, it's an advertisement to grab your attention around an issue, health issue. It grabs your attention. Makes you look at it and go, hey, why are you putting the finger at me? To be honest, there are so many health messages in the world that the trick is from an advertising agency to stand out. So if an old granny's putting you the finger and you take notice of the ad, then it's worked. I wouldn't get too thin-skinned about it.
It's interesting. I mean, I did quite a little study on advertisement law and the BSA and that kind of thing when I was at the broadcasting school. It's very fascinating, and I think that a lady pointing the finger at an ad, as long as you can prove that it's relevant to the message, would be more than okay.
I think it has the shock effect. It's a bit like language. The F-bomb and everything. It's all becomes slightly acceptable. Yeah. Okay. What's it, mate? What's it?
Editor-in-Chief with Duncan Garner.
Right, that's us. Thanks for your feedback, guys, and your support. Get in touch through our social media, Duncan Garner Podcast, TikTok, Instagram. Flick us an email, duncan@rover.nz. The emails work. That's how we got hold of Youth Inspire today. It was Carol, who's a nurse, sent me an email saying, hey, Youth Inspire, they do great work. So I got hold of Youth Inspire, and now they're on the podcast tonight. To my team, Isaac, thank you, brother. Always appreciate everything you do, mate, and we'll do it again tomorrow. Remember, life's no dress rehearsal, no curtain raiser. This is it. We live in one of the best places on earth. So get out and enjoy it. Have a great rest of the day. If you can be a mentor to a young person, you might change their life. Have a great day, folks. Ta-da.
Editor-in-Chief with Duncan Garner.